Let's do show. Let me share my screen. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to scratch the surface on a few different topics today. This is just feedback that we've been getting from just asset managers and bookkeepers about things that are being missed or done incorrectly. So I just really want to focus on what those things are so that we can work on them and make it better. Okay. At any point, if anyone has any questions, please ask them. I will also have this presentation and the recording up later on this afternoon, so please refer back to that as well. All right, so today we're going to focus on critical steps of hold fees, move-in flow, social security number and date of birth, pet deposits, and the guarantors. Okay. So critical steps for hold fees. So entering the prospective tenants in AppFolio, and then also receiving and depositing hold fees is what we're going to focus on. Okay, so entering prospective residents in AppFolio. So guys, it's mandatory to move in a prospective resident in AppFolio if a hold fee is collected, even if the application has not been submitted via onsite. So guys, I know this can be confusing, but let's say a resident shows up to a tour, they give you a hold fee, which is just a physical check, or let's say we take it via PayTrace, but they haven't submitted their application yet. We still have to put their name in as a future resident. So you should have that information readily available. And if you don't, you're going to use an alias name. So right here on this example, I have Jane Doe. Okay. So this is because that money has to belong to someone in AppFolio, and we can go in later on and correct this, but we still need to enter someone into AppFolio as a future resident. Okay. So that's just the example right here. And this is if you click move in tenant on the dashboard in AppFolio, that's the page that you'll get here. And then on the right side, I have just on-site for the recent leasing activity via on-site. Okay. Okay, moving on. So entering a prospective resident in AppFolio. So utilizing a calendar to keep track of all your prospects who tour the available unit is going to be super helpful. I like to use Google Calendar for myself for my properties just because I don't like to mesh my Pacific Crest email and my resident manager duties together. But right here, I have an example of kind of what that looks like. So I have 3 p.m. Laurel Heights for this unit showing. Okay. In the showing, it will allow you to calendar invite your prospect while providing information about holding fees procedure, application links, and a lot of other things. This will also allow you to obtain their contact information so that if they give you a hold fee before they actually apply, you have the information to put them into AppFolio. Okay. Another option too is that you can use the guest card feature in AppFolio, which can also be utilized to capture the prospect's name and contact information. So guys, it's really important that you have some sort of system in place so that you can, one, refer back to the information so that you can follow up, but two, it can be used for a lot of different things. Being able to use this information for your traffic reports, or like I said, following up, or using that information to put it in AppFolio. This is all going to be helpful for you guys. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so receipt and deposit hold fees and AppFolio. So hold fees must be receipted and deposited at AppFolio and also mailed to the bank within 24 hours of collection. Guys, this is policy. We always need to get this in the bank and get them input into AppFolio as soon as possible. Okay, but at 24 hours max. The one exception to this policy is if the hold fee is paid with the physical payment, so that can be a personal check, money order, or a cashier's check, the last 7 days of the month. So physical payments cannot be receipted or deposited within the last 7 days of the month, so you will need to hold this payment until the first of the following month. Okay, I wouldn't tell your applicants that we're going to hold that check, because then they could cancel it and move on to the next thing if they wanted to. Okay. So again, if you have a physical check, whether it be guaranteed funds or a personal check, you want to hold that if it's within the last 7 days of the month, and then we're going to receipt and deposit that on the 1st of the following month. Okay? Receipt and deposit hold fees and Appfolio. So for pay trace hold fees, not all properties utilize pay trace, but if you do, this is for you. You have the flexibility to collect, receipt, and deposit at any time during the month. Entering the payment in pay trace and receiving and depositing the hold fee and Appfolio must be completed consecutively. Okay? Go ahead, Doug.
I just took a hold check the other day. The prospective tenant lives in Olympia. She pulled off the freeway and got onto on-site and filled out the application. I got the message and I said, hey, do you want to put a hold on this? When she got home to Olympia, she mailed or took a photograph of a check and put the check in the mail yesterday. Now, I really can't do anything with that check, can I?
No, so I wouldn't receipt and deposit until you have it in your hands because we still have to give it to the bank.
Yeah.
So I think that's more so, I think that's more so if like there's multiple people looking at that same unit and are applying for it, then they have confirmation. Usually, like what I was advised by my asset manager for my properties is that if we're in a situation where they're not local, that they send us a picture of the check number and then also send us a picture of like a certified mail receipt number from USPS, and then that would be sufficient for the hold. So that's them saying that, hey, we're mailing this and it's in the mail and you should get it pretty soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll probably get it just in time for the 1st.
Good. Good. Okay. So again, guys, with pay trace, when you are receiving and depositing hold fees, you need to do this. It needs to be in one step, but at most 24 hours. Okay. Properties equipped with a check scanner have the liberty to receipt and deposit hold fees at any time during the month. So this pretty much is electronic payment as well. And so typically it gets to the bank within 1 business day. So that's why we allow that to be at any time of the month as well. Not all properties utilize check scanner, but you guys, if you do, please use them to your advantage. Okay. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Okay, move and flow during the hold fee process. The process of moving in a prospect as a future resident prior to the move-in is to receipt and deposit the hold fee. So guys, we can't take payment from non-tenants, which is why we're inputting them into Appfolio as a future tenant. Okay. The lease details section of the move-in flow is a critical stopping point. You can enter the lease charges prior to the move-in day, but do not click continue. So this continue with the X over it, don't click that. That's going to be at the bottom of the page. You don't want to click continue until the day of their move-in, so the lease start date. Instead, please select save for later on the top right of the page, which is going to be this right here. Okay. If you click continue, the security deposit will post to the future tenant's ledger before they move in, and this creates an accounting issue which has to be manually corrected by the bookkeepers. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I have a bit of a question. Should we be collecting present addresses or like a forwarding address in case somebody gives us, say, like a money order so we can return that to the person?
You're saying like if they're denied for any reason or we have to give it back?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can, but like, I think that's, you don't really need to take that step until we get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's within their best interest to give you that information so that they get their money back. So typically that's not an issue as far as obtaining that information.
Okay.
That information should also be on your application that you get as their current address. So you always have that as a backup.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they submit an application. Okay. Moving on. Social security number and date of birth. So guys, this is something that has been missed a lot lately, and it's really important that we have this information. So you must enter the resident's social security number and the date of birth in Appfolio. This information is required to send a previous resident to collections for any balances owed to the property. So it's critical that this information is entered. There are 2 methods to complete this task, which include the move-in method and the guest card conversion method. I'm going to go over both methods right now. Whatever you choose to utilize, it doesn't matter as long as this information gets put in there. Okay. So move-in method. If you opt to utilize the move-in tenant function on the dashboard, you must input the resident's social security number and date of birth under the screening dropdown on the tenant page. So when I say move-in tenant, when you're on the dashboard and you're clicking move-in tenant right here on the right side to enter them in as a future resident, you're then gonna have to go to the tenant page, which is this right here, and scroll down where the screening section is. Okay, so that's where you're gonna input that information. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay. Next method is the guest card conversion method. So alternatively, you can move residents in by creating a new guest card, clicking enter rental application and then convert to tenant. AppFolio will prompt you to enter this in as part as the application. So when you go to vacancy and guest cards, this is what's going to populate right here. On the right side, you can select new guest card, and then you're going to fill out the information. Usually it's just what they're interested in, what their name is, and then their contact information. Once that's input, you're going to get a little green banner up here that says guest card was successfully created. So right here, I have Sally Smith, and I have her email, and I have her phone number. Next step is on the right side under tasks, there's going to be a button that says enter rental application. So it's going to take you to the rental application via AppFolio. So we don't utilize this right now, but we can use it just to input the SSN and the birthday. So this is a method that you can utilize that, but just know that the rental application, of course, is through onsite, not through AppFolio. So when you're going through the rental application, this is what's going to populate right here, and that's where you're going to put the birthday and the SSN. Okay. Once you click save and continue, you're going to get that green banner again that says new rental application for Sally Smith has been added. On the right side, you can click convert to tenant, which is going to convert them to a tenant in AppFolio, and this will take you to the move and flow page. This is the longer method to get someone input into AppFolio, but it ensures that this SSN and the birthday doesn't get missed. So again, guys, you can use either method. I just care that the information gets in there. If you guys utilize, well, whatever method that you guys use, I really encourage you to move in or to utilize the move-in checklist, which is in Grow. Some properties require that you utilize this. If you don't use it now, I really encourage you guys to, just because it's really important and it's very helpful for you guys. If you don't have one set up yet, connect with your asset manager or myself and we can help you get one generated. And again, guys, this is just to keep you on track. Make sure that nothing gets missed and that everyone's there, or everything's there, excuse me. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I have a quick question. It's okay if we use a photograph of their driver's license? I attached it as a file to the on-site lease application.
Yeah, I mean, I would also even upload that into the AppFolio e-file too, just because it's important information to have.
Yeah, I think I did. I'm gonna double check.
Yeah, so we should be collecting that anyways, but I encourage you guys to use the e-file in AppFolio just because everyone that has access to that property is going to have access to that information.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a bit of a question, and this is just maybe it's because, you know, I do, like, my building tends to be like slightly like lower rent, lower income individuals. So that does come with its unique set of challenges. What do we do in the case of, like, say somebody doesn't have ID?
Like they don't have like an SSN, or they're not.
No, they have an SSN, but they don't have like a driver's license or an ID or a passport.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a gray area. Aurora, do you have any input on that?
In order to tour, they should have an ID. You're required per policy is that you need to check ID before you even tour them. I haven't had that situation, but I guess if they would bring like other documents, I mean, it's rare that someone would
Yeah.
come without it, but I would be very cautious of it. But if they have like things that like the Department of Licensing would accept, so like something with their address on it, their social security card, their birth certificate, or even something that was work issued, right? Like an ID for their work to bring with that, just something with some sort of photo would be ideal, because the reason for this is to stop people stealing identities.
Okay.
So
And it's also for your safety too.
and yeah, and that's why we asked for the ID before tours, for your guys' safety, so you know that this person is who they say they are. So I would be cautious of it, but if they do want to put down an application and tour, I'd try to get as much information as possible to verify they are who they are.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
basically
sure they're
just,
going to know if they're in that situation. So they're typically going to have information to kind of back up their identity. Are you in a situation like that right now?
No, but I do like it, I do consider like the possibility of it. And I was just wondering, I honestly, now that I think about it, maybe just running off of like the DMV list of like acceptable like list A, list B, list C documents.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very safe assumption to just do that. Whatever they would request would be fair. So
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So guys, any questions about moving in your tenants or putting in your SSN or date of birth for your residents? No? Okay, moving on.
I have one comment really quickly, just to re-stress to everybody, is that like the social security number is good. I don't know, I was responding to something, so I don't know if you said this, so I do apologize, but the social security is only good in on-site for like 48 hours from when they submit it. It used to be 48 hours from when you ran it, but now they've changed it, so 48 hours from when they submit it. So make sure that you jot down that last four of that social if you're not ready to run it and enter it into Appfolio, because it'll disappear and you have to then sheepishly go to the tenant and ask for that last four. So just try to remember that to get it in as quickly as possible. So, because you won't be able to see it in on-site.
Yeah, and even if you have multiple people applying for the same unit, but you haven't gotten a hold fee, you can need to capture the SSN for all applicants for that unit, because we don't know who you're going to proceed with. Karen?
All right, good morning.
Morning.
I have learned this the hard way, but you can also call on site. And if you have all, the first 5 digits or the first, then they will, and all your information about who you are and stuff, they will give you those last 4.
Karen,
Just for the record.
Have you done that recently?
I probably did it a couple months ago.
Okay, because I've just had some managers that have had issues with trying to get that, so I wasn't sure if they changed it or if it was the person that they were talking to or something. I don't know. So there have been some people that have had issues trying to do that. So, but it is an option if you miss it.
But let's avoid to try to like not have to get to that point. Just if you see it submitted, let's just capture the SSN.
Well, as long as we're on the subject of this, do we still need to print out and then scan and then put the last 4 on a hard copy and scan it to our asset manager? Or it seems redundant since we already have it in Appfolio.
I mean, no, I usually save it as a PDF, just make sure that it's secure. And then I will make sure that I'm deleting any sensitive information if I don't have any use for it anymore.
Thank you.
Good.
I just had to do the calling on site method because I did, miss a couple of SSNs, and there were a couple of old Appfolio entries that, didn't have them, that had been missed by my prior property manager. I can confirm that this method does work. it does depend on the representative that you get, but they are generally like pretty helpful in getting that information. Just make sure like, you know, you do need the first 4, and I do believe that they ask you a couple of security questions just to make sure. So
Okay.
just make sure to talk to your asset manager about it.
Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna move on, guys. Okay, pet deposit update. So we found out about this new update that we need to make sure that we are complying with. So PCRA will continue to collect a $300 pet deposit, but in the event that the pet deposit, whether it be 1 or 2 pets, exceeds 25% of 1 month's rent, the pet deposit will need to be capped at 25%. So for example, if the monthly rent is $1,500, the maximum pet rent, maximum pet deposit that can be charged is 25% of $1,500, which equals to $375. Okay. Therefore, if a resident has 2 pets, the total pet deposit will be $375. On-site will automatically default to $600 if 2 pets are selected. So you will need to edit this amount as necessary. Okay, so when we say edit, you're going to go right here on on-site where it lets you select the pet deposit. You're just going to enter the correct amount. Please note that we cannot charge pet deposits or pet rent for approved assistance animals. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I do.
Go for it.
The tenant, when she sent me all of her information, she also sent me a certified letter from her therapist that her 2 cats are support animals. So they fall into that category. And it's an actual brick and mortar therapist, not an online thing. I looked.
Good. Yeah, that's totally fine. As long as you
So
get
I
a
should be
note.
changing that on her on-site application because she went ahead and wrote in or did the deposit based on the information I had given her. So it does appear as 600. So I should change that number to 375.
So if it is an assistance animal, so I'm guessing it's an ESA, or for both of
Yeah.
them, we can't take a deposit or we can't charge any pet rent.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But
So
it
this
was
is in the
just so
case that they just have pets. So if it's an animal, like an assistance animal, that you get a note from their medical provider, then we can't charge a deposit or pet rent. If it's a pet, then you can do the pet deposits and pet rent, but it has to be capped at 25%.
Okay, yeah, and the therapist mentioned both of the cats by name as emotional support.
Yeah. No, I think as
Okay.
long as she has the documentation to back it up, then that's totally fine.
Okay, I'm not leaving. Hold on. Coming, dog. I'm coming.
But Sid,
So the way that it's been done at my property previously is there's been like a pet rent charge, and then it's been, you know, there's been a concession. And we, like, Eric informed me that we were changing how we did that. Should we go, like, you know, in cases about other properties too, but should we be going back and correcting that so there's like no pet rent charged and there's no concession? Like, how are we handling like current residents that have like ESAs but, you know, have that pet rent charge and then the concession, like refunding that pet rent charge?
yeah. So I think if it's brought to your attention, then of course we're going to have to get your asset manager and your bookkeeper involved because they're going to have to cut a check to give it back. But also I'm like curious as to why it wasn't noted when they initially, or like before, like if they're a previous resident and you're taking over, why they hadn't said something before. So
I don't think you're quite like, so it's just the pet rent that they're concessioning it out. And the reason why we were doing that was it was so that we could track who had pets. So instead of not having nothing in there, we would put the pet rent in and concession it out as an ESA concession, just so that we could see, like when we do the annual inspections, we could be like, yes, they have a pet, and we check their ledger and it's like, oh yes, we do know they have this pet, but it's it's registered as an ESA, so it's concessioning it out. There wouldn't have been a deposit that would have been collected, correct, Sid? It's just the rent that they're concessioning out.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a moot point. What would happen here is that at next renewal, you would just remove that if your asset manager agrees to not continue to have the concession on the books. And so you just wipe out the concession, wipe out the charge, and then it would be like normal.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And then I would also just note on the lease notes that if there's a service animal, to note it in there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
trying
Sydney, I
to.
had a person move, they rented a 2-bedroom for $18.95. They have 2 pets, pay the pet rent, of course, but I calculated the pet rent, it would be $473.75 based on the $18.95 base rent.
Yeah.
25%. So
Correct.
we can put in whatever the dollar and cent amount is, not round up or anything.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right, I think there was another question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because I'm not great with math, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to tell people what to expect with regards to deposit. And this doesn't change anything for pet rent for each pet, right? This is just the deposit depending on what the rent is for that unit.
Correct.
Okay. All
So,
right.
I mean, with math, you're just gonna do, just for the sake of like kind of calculating stuff, you're gonna do the base or the rent amount and then multiply it by, so like if it's 25%, 0.25. So 1,500 times 0.25 would give you the 25%, just so you know.
Okay. So with this, is it possible that the deposit for one pet would just be 300 depending on that rent amount, but at another building it's possible that it's also 375 for that rent amount?
Yeah, well,
Too.
yes. So like for one pet, it should always be $300 unless, well, let me see what the math is for, hold on one sec, 0.25.
$1,200.
Yeah. So if the rent is 1,200 or less, then you would have to cap it at 25%. But let's say if the rent is more than 1,200, then that means that you would have to cap it at 25%, or the first pet would be $300. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I think once I do it with either Eric or Peter, I think it'll work out fine. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. That's all.
Okay. And just know that like if it pops up, you can send me a text or, or even your asset manager, and then we can walk it through just to kind of go through it in real time. Just because I know that it can be a little confusing.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle?
Yes, I guess I'm assuming, and Aurora, that this is not regarding HUD at all, as far as these deposits go.
This is also a Seattle only option too. This is part of the Seattle handbook, so this doesn't apply to anything outside of Seattle, from what I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Correct, Sydney?
I believe so, yes. I'll have to confirm with Angie.
I'm fair. It's part of the Seattle handbook, which is in your guys' lease at the very end of the Seattle properties. So this shouldn't apply to anything outside of Seattle. And it wouldn't apply to any HUD buildings, which we don't have in Seattle, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, guys?
Quick question, sorry.
Okay,
Do we include the cents or just full number?
So I would put exactly what 25% is if there's multiple pets.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving on. So the guarantors update. So before we thought that we could submit a claim at any point during a resident's tenancy, but it seems that's not the case. So a claim for delinquent rent cannot be submitted to the guarantors mid-tenancy. Instead, claims can only be submitted and processed once the resident has vacated the unit and the move out has been completed. The guarantors will process and pay out the claim within a time frame of 1 to 2 weeks. Managers will need to post a 14-day or 30-day pay or vacate notice per our standard procedure and proceed to evictions if necessary. If evictions is required, a claim will be filed after the resident has vacated the unit. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this? All right, guys, that's all I have for you. I'm going to stay on for probably like another 10 minutes in case anyone has any questions outside of what we talked about today. And again, I'll have this up on YouTube and then also throw later on today. All right, Piper?
I just had a quick, yeah, about the 14-day notices for these guarantors. So basically on the 7th, we just post those 14 days period, no matter what's going on. Okay.
Yep.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and I think you're the one that prompted us figuring this out. So I'm glad we have clarification.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
And so I was misunderstanding because this is really not going to affect us as managers, right? I mean, there's nothing we'll need to do about the claim.
Nothing outside. If they have the guarantors, we're just gonna go with the same procedure. Like if they become delinquent on their rent, we're still gonna post a notice to pay or vacate on the 7th,
Right.
and that's a hard deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, of course.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, Karen. Thank you.
Sydney, I can sit back and chat